Hello, and welcome to Live Parkinson's, Live an Exceptional Life. I'm your host, Chris Kustanbauter. For 15 years, I've navigated life with Parkinson's, striving to live an exceptional one. And that's precisely the heart of this podcast, to empower as many people as possible to lead a truly great quality of life despite Parkinson's. Today, we're taking a detour from our usual deep dives into strategies, science, and personal stories. My heart is heavy today as I say goodbye to a truly remarkable soul who taught me profound lessons about life, and specifically about living with Parkinson's. This episode is a heartfelt tribute to my incredible boxer dog, Duke. Duke passed away today, May 20th, 25, after a courageous battle with bone cancer. So I've titled this special episode, A Tribute to My Dog, Duke, Unforgettable Lessons for Living with Parkinson's. Now, you might be wondering, what could a dog possibly teach me about facing Parkinson's? I know it might sound strange, but Duke's spirit, his courage, his happiness, and his just love of life offered a lot of wisdom that I try to carry with me every day. I invite you to listen as I share some stories and practical insights that I learned from Duke, and I'll do my best to keep my emotions in check. My wife Mary and I have spent the past 20 years rescuing boxers through Adopt a Boxer Rescue. Duke was our third, joining Cookie, who was our first boxer dog, and then Chloe, Hazel, and our current sweetheart, Katie, who is a puppy mill boxer mom. Now, Duke joined our family in early 2015 when my son, who was finishing college, wanted to get a boxer dog, and so we agreed to bring Duke into our family. When Duke was 1 year old, he joined our family, and I'd been living with Parkinson's for about 4 years at the time. Now, Duke's early life was anything but easy. He had a severe injury at the time that we adopted him that required 50 staples to fix a huge gash in his side. He had fallen through a trampoline that he was on with some kids, and the spring tore open a hole in his side. And so the family then couldn't afford to take care of Duke, so they turned him into Adopt a Boxer Rescue. And after his recovery, we were finally able to bring Duke into our home. Now, I'll never forget adoption day. We spent 2 hours excited, to pick up this energetic new little puppy. But Duke had been through so much, and he was still scared, and he was in rehab for his wounds for several weeks. So when we picked him up, they gave us some instructions that try to keep him as still as possible so that he didn't tear open some of the stitches and wounds that he was still healing from. So when we got home, we brought Duke inside, and he was understandably nervous. He was in a new environment, and he was scared. So my son and daughter were with him in the living room while my wife and I had stepped into the garage for just a second. And the storm door from the kitchen to the garage was notoriously slow to close. So in a flash, Duke got startled and scared, and he shot out that door like a rocket, straight into the snow, and started running down the street. So my son and I, without our shoes on, dashed after him in the snow in our stocking feet, trying to catch this wild, energetic little boxer puppy that was running down the street. And that wasn't an easy task for sure. So luckily, my wife jumped into the car and drove to the end of the street and spotted some kids playing out in the yard. And Duke, being the inquisitive dog that he was, stopped to look at the kids. So my wife quickly pulled up beside him and opened the door and calmly asked, "Duke, do you want to go for a ride?" And luckily, Duke jumped right in. So that was a really scary start to our life with Duke, because we're thinking, oh my gosh, we just rescued this boxer dog, and then we're going to have to call and say, something happened to him. But, one of the things that we learned from day one was Duke was full of life and energy. So one of the most powerful lessons that Duke taught me, and that directly applies to our life with Parkinson's, is it's important to adapt to change. Duke had a lot of change in his early life. He went from living with a family with children to going to the hospital, spending time in a veterinary rehab, And so he was scared. He had, been changed around multiple times in just a short period of time. And now he was with a completely new family in a completely new environment with new rules. Yet Duke was smart. It only took him a few days to really adapt and become part of the family. So, how does that relate to us? Well, for those of us with Parkinson's, we all know that change is a constant. Our motor and non-motor symptoms can change from day to day, and other things that can be affected are disease progression, and then we might experience anxiety and depression. But it's how we adapt to these changes that's going to have a really big impact on our quality of life. And Duke showed me that by being able to embrace change, being adaptable, looking at your surroundings, and making necessary adjustments, it can help us do the same thing and live our best lives with Parkinson's. The second lesson Duke taught me was just pure happiness. Now, in a number of my podcasts, I often talk about positivity and optimism. And I know it can sound like the pie in the sky advice, but Duke lived it every day. He was always thrilled to see me, especially when I'd come home from work. He'd be at the window, and then in just a blur of excitement, he'd be at the door waiting for me to open the door. And the moment I walked in, there he was to greet me. He'd be, shaking his tail, doing a dance, and then he'd run off across the kitchen in the living room to grab his favorite plastic disc, and he returned with his little stump wagon, and a lot of times spinning in circles, and he was just so happy to see me. And he also loved playing in the yard. He loved playing tug of war, and he was always happy, upbeat, and always wanted to be around us. He was just a great companion. And then, so this natural happiness really ties directly into the next key lesson that we can all learn from as well, and that's gratitude. Even on my toughest days coming home, Duke was always so happy and always so supportive. It always just put a smile on my face. So you could have the worst day, you could think it's the worst day in your life, but then as soon as you'd see Duke, he'd put a smile on your face. He didn't care what I looked like or how rough my day had been. And for those of us living with Parkinson's, we can do the same thing and use gratitude to help us live our best lives. Now, I often recommended a gratitude journal, and I try to do one every day as well. And I try to write down when I wake up 3 things that I'm grateful for. Now, it doesn't have to be elaborate. For me, it might be I'm grateful to spend time with Duke and Katie, or I enjoyed taking the dogs for a walk, or I love listening to the birds this morning. So starting your day by acknowledging some of the blessings in your life, no matter how small, can make really a big significant difference in how we deal with Parkinson's on a day-to-day basis. So 2 of the big things that Duke taught me were happiness, try to stay positive and happy, and then be grateful, because gratitude can go a long way. Now, the next thing that Duke taught me was friendship and overcoming challenges. Duke taught me about the importance of friendship and companionship. Wherever I went, Duke was right there. Whenever I went to practice guitar, he'd be curled right up beside me on the dog bed. And when I went down to tie flies in the basement for fly fishing, he'd lay there just to be beside me and so we would be together. And then at bedtime, he'd jump right up and settle right in beside me. So he was always there as a constant, comforting friend, and it was nice to have such a great little buddy with me all the time. I want to relate this to how this can help us on our Parkinson's journey, and that is by staying socially connected with your friends and family. It's going to help prevent social isolation, but it also is going to give us some purpose. If you're involved in a social group, and it could be the Lions Club or Rotary Club or whatever it happens to be, it's going to help you stay connected with other people and also give you a sense of purpose and make you feel part of the community. So continue to cherish those friendships that you have, and don't be afraid to forge new ones. Now, I've met so many incredible people on my Parkinson's journey who I consider dear friends. And Duke reminded me that these connections are invaluable and important because they're going to stay with you the rest of your life. So even though Duke's not with us anymore, the lesson he taught me with friendship and companionship is something that I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. Now, Duke was also a master at overcoming challenges. One of the examples I like to give is we used to use these treat balls, and it was a rubber ball that had 2 holes in the side, and you could put treats in there. And then you'd give the ball to Duke, and he would try everything to get them out. He'd push the ball with his nose. He would paw at it, rolling it one way and the other. And he was very intelligent, persistent, and he always found a way to get to the prize he wanted, whether it was a treat or whether it was one he wanted to go for a walk, whatever it was. Duke found different ways to get what he was looking for. So if he was outside in the yard, and I always called him the miner, and I was getting ready to get him a hat or a helmet with the light on, because he just loved to go out and dig. And there were certain things he was looking for, and he would find a way to dig his way into getting it out. So that's one thing I'll never forget, how he overcame some of the challenges. And this applies perfectly to our Parkinson's journey, because every day we're going to face different kinds of obstacles, whether it be our motor symptoms, balance issues, maybe we're having problems with our walking or speech challenges. And what Duke taught me is to break down the challenges into smaller steps and try different approaches. So we might think some of these challenges that we face are insurmountable, but they're not. If we break them down into smaller goals and look at different ways that we can approach the challenge, we'll find ways to get around it. So Duke's lesson is never give up. There's always multiple paths to where we want to go. And we can apply this to our Parkinson's journey by breaking it down into our obstacle into smaller steps or smaller goals. So if we're having difficulty with our fine motor skills, maybe you just ask someone to help you button your shirt, or you come up with different ways to, if you're making something in the kitchen and you want to cut something up and you're having a little bit of difficulty, find find another utensil that you might be able to use. So there's always answers to how we can overcome problems. And so that's one of the things that Duke taught me that's really important. And then I want to talk about exercise. Duke absolutely loved exercise. He loved going for walks. He was always excited to explore new scents, and he always loved to go out and chase balls in the yard and play tug of war. And he liked to do this because it benefited him both physically and mentally, because he was being mentally challenged while we were playing the games and going for walks. So I often talked about how exercise is one of the most important pieces of our Parkinson's journey, because we all know that consistent exercise is one of the keys that's going to help us slow our disease progression and help us maintain our mobility and stay active, as well as helping to support us mentally as well. So just like Duke needed consistent walking every day, we need the same thing with us with living with Parkinson's. We need a consistent exercise plan so that we're making sure that we exercise every day. Now, Duke was my buddy and made sure that I got exercise. So even on days where I thought, oh, I'm tired, I don't feel like doing anything, there he'd be standing at the door saying, let's go. And so I'd put my shoes on and away we would go. And so whether I wanted to or not, so Duke really taught me that exercise was important. And you can do the same thing. Find a friend or a buddy to say, come on, put your shoes on, let's go, we're going for a walk. So Duke taught me the importance of exercise and to make it enjoyable. Finally, one of the most profound lessons I think I learned from Duke was he taught me about courage. Now, I look at courage as popping up when we least expect it, especially when we face adversity. Now, we might not think that we have courage, but when faced with adversity and we're looking adversity in the eye and we still push forward, even on our toughest days, that to me is courage. Now, Duke, especially in his fight with cancer, had days where he struggled with his walking and he was in pain. But his courage and sheer will and determination pushed him through. And the same holds true for us with Parkinson's. We're going to face daily challenges and obstacles, but we just need the courage to keep pushing forward to live our best lives. So remember, even though we have Parkinson's, Parkinson's doesn't have us. We still remain in control. So what Duke taught me, and hopefully I can share with you, is that have the courage to face these daily challenges with resilience and push through, because when you push through the challenges, you're going to look back with pride, knowing that you accomplished something that you didn't think that you were going to be able to do. So you're able to face obstacles and challenges head on. Now, Duke was courageous until the very end, and he just had this incredible will and determination that I'm never going to forget. And that leads me to the ultimate lesson that I learned from Duke, and that's just to live your best life. From the moment Duke woke up until the time he went to sleep, he lived life to the fullest. He was always active, always doing something, always living the life he wanted to live. And that's crucial for us living with Parkinson's, on our Parkinson's journey. Live the life you want to live, and don't allow worries, fear, and obstacles to get in your way. And Duke really exemplified this. And that's one thing that I'll always remember, is he lived his best life, and we can live our best lives with Parkinson's. We just have to push the fear and worry aside. So I just want to summarize the key points that Duke taught me, and which I hope you can apply to your Parkinson's journey as well. And the first was, don't be afraid to adapt to change. Remember, change is inevitable. We all face change. And the better we can adapt, the better our lives are going to be. And then embrace happiness, gratitude, and optimism, because they're going to be keys to living your best life with Parkinson's. Because even on our most difficult days, we can push through, and you're going to be happy and looking back and saying, I'm proud of myself for what I accomplished. And then be grateful for blessings. You'll find the positive things always outweigh the negative. So replace those negative thoughts with positive ones, and you're going to live a better quality of life. The next thing was prioritize friendship and companionship. Stay engaged with your friends and your family and your social groups. But again, don't hesitate to make new friends. You're going to meet incredible people on your Parkinson's journey who understand what you're going through. So share your successes and what works for you. I know I've made some truly great and dear friends, and I know you can do the same thing. And then have courage. Face the daily challenges, whether it be tremors, balance, or walking, with resilience and hope. Push through them, and you're going to be so proud of yourself for not letting fear prevent you from living your best life. They're the profound lessons that Duke taught me, and I couldn't be more grateful. So I hope you found today's podcast meaningful, and this truly was a tribute to Duke. He was an outstanding family companion, and the lessons I learned from him are going to stay with me forever. I'm going to miss him dearly, and I'm simply blessed to have shared with him my life with him and him with me. So I hope he's in a better place now and pain-free. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to connecting with you on future podcasts. Thanks again, and I appreciate all of you.